Hi, this is Pastor Brian. Today we begin another look into wisdom literature, actually, the last official part of wisdom literature that we find in the Bible, at least the canon of the Bible. There's also the Apocrypha, which we may look into if we keep going on this way. But Job is the final official wisdom literature in the Bible, and so we will be going through and exploring the story of Job, which is very different because it's more story-like, though it has some heavy wisdom themes in it. It's a book that I've always turned people to, especially in times of grief and trying to understand God. So I hope that as we explore this book together as a chapter a day, that you can see all the wisdom in it, even though it's different than the way Ecclesiastes and Proverbs were presented. So we will do a chapter of Job a day, maybe less depending on the length of the chapter, but we will see. And I want to thank you for joining me. I will be reading from the Common English Bible. So let's jump into chapter 1. A man in the land of Uz was named Job. That man was honest, a person of absolute integrity. He feared God and avoided evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters and owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 pairs of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a vast number of servants, so that he was greater than all the people of the East. Each of his sons hosted a feast in his own house on his birthday. They invited their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When the days of the feast had been completed, Job would send word and purify his children. Getting up early in the morning, he prepared entirely burned offerings for each one of them. For Job thought, "Perhaps my children have sinned and then cursed God in their hearts." Job did this regularly. One day the divine beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and the adversary also came among them. The Lord said to the adversary, "Where did you come from?" The adversary answered the Lord, "From wandering throughout the earth." The Lord said to the adversary, "Have you thought about my servant Job? Surely there is no one like him on the earth, a man who is honest, who is of absolute integrity, who reveres God and avoids evil." The adversary answered the Lord, "Does Job revere God for nothing? Haven't you fenced him in, his house and all he has, and blessed the work of his hands so that his possessions extend throughout the earth? But stretch out your hand and strike all he has. He will certainly curse you to your face." The Lord said to the adversary, "Look, all he has is within your power. Only don't stretch out your hand against him." So the adversary left the Lord's presence. One day Job's sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. A messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys were grazing nearby, when the Sabaeans took them and killed the young men with swords. I alone escaped to tell you." While this messenger was speaking, another arrived and said, "A raging fire fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and devoured the young men. I alone escaped to tell you." While this messenger was speaking, another arrived and said, "Chaldeans set up 3 companies, raided the camels, and took them, killing the young men with swords. I alone escaped to tell you." While this messenger was speaking, another arrived and said, "Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in the oldest brother's house, when a strong wind came from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It fell upon the young people and they died. I alone escaped to tell you." Job arose, tore his clothes, shaved his head, fell to the ground, and worshipped. He said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I will return there." The Lord has given, the Lord has taken. Bless the Lord's name. In all this, Job didn't sin or blame God. So what stuck out to you in this first chapter of Job? It's an interesting chapter. It sets up the rest of the story for what's going to happen between Job and God and everything else that happens. So what stuck out to you? Was it this tension between the Lord and the adversary? Was it the fact that Job had all of these incredible things in his life? Was it the fact that after he basically lost all of it, he still fell down and worshiped God and said, "Naked I came and naked I will return"? Basically, from dust to dust. The Lord gives and the Lord takes. Bless the Lord's name. Sometimes I think it's hard for us to bless and thank God for all that God has done, even in the midst of strife, even in the midst of pandemic, in the midst of loss, and such terrible loss Job is experiencing. So what are the things that struck you? What are the things that were encouraging? What were the things that were confusing? Write them down. Share them with a friend. Post them on social media with me. Think about what meaning it might have for you in a time of pandemic as we read this story together. And I hope that you find this helpful in your journey of faith. I hope to see you tomorrow as we explore chapter 2. God bless and take care of yourselves.